Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. In this video, I want to discuss a double standard and a hypocrisy when it comes to freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And I want to concentrate on a particular figure in history named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk is known to modernize Turkey from the Khilafah state. He is portrayed as the person who bared Western enlightenment into the West and modernized Turkey. What they mean by modernizing Turkey, it is to uproot it from the tenets of Islam. So basically, it's an order to reform and westernize Islam and remove it from any Arab roots. And this is why Ataturk is very appealing to certain groups within Turkey. So there is a lot of people who actually classify Kemalists as being non-Muslim, more atheist. However, this approach is not actually entirely true. We need to be careful when Muslims label Kemalists as being those who actually hate Muslims. There are Kemalists who are Sunni and follow the Hanafi fiqh school. They adhere to an interpretation of Islam that aligns with Turkish nationalism and often reject the Arab interpretation of Islam. For example, these nationalists may pray 5 times a day, but have pictures of Ataturk all over their homes and workplaces. They follow the Diyanet, Turkey's official religious authority, and believe that Islam has been reformed according to their own understanding. Some even argue that the hijab isn't compulsory. Someone like Harun Yahya, also known as Adnan Oktar in Turkey, is an example. He even in fact praises Ataturk. So we cannot classify them as non-Muslim. Rather, they may be misguided or in some cases have strayed outside the fold of Islam. I come from a family that praised Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. My father regularly visited the mosque. Of course, within any ideology, there are variations. Some Kemalists are closer to Sunni Islam, while others are far from it. The later group tends to be extremely secular, racist, and opposed to Islamic culture. They may attack women who wear the hijab and adopt atheistic or communist worldviews. I remember confronting a Kemalist like this. Although he considered himself Muslim, he admitted he didn't pray and didn't believe in any organized religion. However, he still saw himself as part of the Islamic culture because his grandmother prayed her salah. When I questioned his strong views against Arabs, given that the Prophet himself was an Arab, he accused me of defending Arabs and suggested my blood must be polluted by Arab intermarriage. Unfortunately, this shows the deep-rooted racism in some individuals. It will take years for these people to heal, and sadly, many of them seem to be far gone. So put that to the side, where we are not claiming that all Kemalists are non-Muslim or they hate Islam. Remember, there are extreme versions of Kemalism. Just like you may have extreme versions in Shiism. Not all Shia actually curse the Sahaba. There are Shia who don't curse the Sahaba. Then there are Shia who actually curse some of the Sahabas, and there are Shias who make a lot of kufri statements against Islam and Muslims. We know Khomeini, for example, would say that there are certain imams who are greater than the prophets, and they control every atom in the universe. Of course, not all Shias make this statement, so we shouldn't generalize all Shias to be the same, just as we shouldn't generalize all Kemalists to be the same. And like I said, there are actual Kemalists who actually ascribe to the Hanafi school of thought, and some of their wives actually even cover and wear the hijab, and they put a picture of Ataturk. So do we then turn around and say that these people are non-Muslim or secular liberal and they hate Islam? Of course not. We should never, ever, ever make that sort of judgment. Do I personally believe that Mustafa Kemal Ataturk was a non-Muslim? Do I personally believe that he hated Islam? Do I personally believe that this person is a Mason and he was injected by the Jews? There are historical examples and archives that may suggest that this person did not have Islam as his interest. There are examples of this. There are examples of him secularizing and westernizing the Muslim lands. And there are some historical points that may show that he may have been a Jewish agent. And if you want to see the evidence of that, you can look at the hyperlink below this video. But am I going to classify him to be a kafir or a non-Muslim or someone like this? I'm not going to make this judgment because I don't have enough evidence to prove this. Because whenever we discover the evidence, most of it comes from hearsay. However, do we see policies implemented and instrumented by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk that goes against Islam? Yes, there are many points you can make references to and documented evidences, and this is even attested by the extreme version of Kemalists themselves. So that's why you'll always find that the atheist movement in Turkey, for example, they will never align themselves with a conservative Islamic political group, someone like, say, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. So what you would find is they will always align themselves with the opposition parties, like CHP, more of the Kemalist movement, because of their reforms in Turkey. And there are some plausible arguments why Mustafa Kemal Ataturk did such a thing. And some say that the reason why he tried to westernize Turkey was because he was trying to save whatever was left for Turkey. So if Turkey didn't modernize and westernize and remove Sharia, then Europe wouldn't have accepted a peace treaty and all of the Europeans would have invaded Turkey, Europeanizing Turkey completely, where there is no more Quran, where there is no more mosques, where there is no more Islamic civilization, and it'll all be overthrown. So what Mustafa Kemal Ataturk did, they argue, is that he tried to Latinize the Arabic to Turkish, and he removed certain madrasas, he removed the hijab, and he introduced a lot of the Western practices where there's been drinking alcohol, gambling, and so forth. But I don't really want to make this video about Ataturk. What I want to make it about really is the hypocrisy when it comes to freedom of speech. A lot of these secular atheist movements in Turkey who assign themselves with Ataturk, they will be the first ones to constantly ridicule Muslims all around the world about censorship, about freedom of speech, about how they are intolerant when it comes to Islam. when it comes to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So, for example, these secular atheist Kemalists in Turkey, for example, they will say things like, how dare these Wahhabist, Arabist Muslims go out and attack Charlie Hebdo? How dare they don't allow Westerners to criticize Prophet Muhammad? How dare they don't allow Prophet Muhammad to be drawn in a despicable way? And they say this is an attack against freedom of rights and freedom of values and freedom of choice. This is about liberty. This is about human rights. And these individuals will work day and night trying to reform Muslim lands, trying to reform parts of the Muslim world, saying how, for example, Iran should not impose the dress code for women, and they'll say all sorts of nasty things against Iran, and how they will often blame President Recep Erdogan for censoring media, certain media, of their attacks against Erdogan, whether it be spreading lies and whatever, or misinformation. They say President Erdogan, for instance, imprisons those who speak against his government in a negative way, and they say that this impinges our rights to freedom and freedom of speech, and how such a government is totalitarian in nature, it is a dictator, and so forth. And yet, we do not hear a single noise from them when Turkish law has laws that prevent anyone from insulting Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Yes, if you insult Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, which these atheists and these secular liberalist Kemalists assign themselves to Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, and yet they do not make any noise about removing the law in Turkey that says if you insult or speak against Ataturk in a negative way, that you will be prosecuted and imprisoned for 3 years, although they've reduced it now to 2 years. 2 years imprisonment if you insult Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. So the law is number 5816, Law on Crimes Committed Against Ataturk. And you can read this up. It reads, anyone who publicly insults or swears at the memory of Ataturk is punished with imprisonment from 1 year to 3 years. So I ask, where is their condemnation of this law if they want to be fair? If these people support the criticism of the Prophet Muhammad, and that you can draw pictures depicting the Prophet Muhammad in a vile way, and they support this, then the same standard should apply to Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Then people should be able to insult Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, draw pictures of him, and ridicule him also. What makes that different from Prophet Muhammad? They're both human beings. You support the Prophet Muhammad being insulted, and yet you don't accept Ataturk to be insulted. Of course, folks, don't get me wrong, I'm only talking about a particular Kemalist movement who is atheist and completely hates religion, and allows people to ridicule and mock religion. These are the specific Kemalists I'm talking about, not the Kemalists who actually believe in the Prophet Muhammad and do not believe that the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad should be denigrated in any fashion. I'm not talking about these types of Kemalists. I'm talking about the Kemalists who actually support the ridiculing, mocking of the Prophet Muhammad. You can also visit the penal code of 301 in Turkey that says it is illegal to insult Turkey, the Turkish nation, Turkish government institution, or Turkish national heroes such as Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. This was taken in effect since June 1st, 2005. So again, I ask, Ataturk is part of this. Why don't they protest in the street declaring that this law should be removed in regards to Mustafa Kemal Ataturk? I know they want the law removed regarding attacking the Turkish government, such as Recep Tayyip Erdogan, but why do they not include Mustafa Kemal Ataturk in there? So to me, that is a double standard and a hypocrisy from these secular liberalist atheists. And again, they know what the law is. They know what the law is. And yet, there is not an atheist campaign where they all start coming together and saying, we're going to remove the law in Turkey. This law is unjust. Anyone should be criticized. Anyone should be drawn. All pictures should be drawn. Doesn't matter who you are, right? We should all come together as atheist Turks. We should all come together as an alignment with the ex-Muslims in America, with all the ex-Muslims in the UK. We should all come together and start drawing a picture of Ataturk, ridiculing him. We should stand against the Turkish institution and the government who made this a policy. They should remove this policy. And the way we should get this removed is we should all start drawing pictures of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, ridiculing him. Why don't we see them do this? But the same atheists are going out and supporting all of these Westerners drawing pictures of Prophet Muhammad and saying, this is freedom, man. This is true liberation, dude. This is how we fight against Islamic intolerance, right? This is what they do. And again, folks, I'm not suggesting at all that anyone should draw a picture of Ataturk and ridicule him. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm seeing a hypocrisy that these guys are supporting the pictures of Prophet Muhammad being drawn and ridiculed, and yet they are completely silent with the government of Turkey putting laws prohibiting anyone drawing or mocking a picture of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk or insulting Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. And there is zilch, nothing coming out of these people. Bunch of hypocrites.